recording is started, so yeah, take it away.
What number is this?
I don't know, bro. I think 4.
4, 5, 5.
You want me to check?
Welcome to no,
I
no.
ruined your intro. I'll
Yeah.
check. I'll check real
Well,
quick.
this is going in. I hope. Leave this in. Leave
Yeah.
this in.
Editor.
Here we go. Welcome to Cosmic Divide, episode number 4 or 5. We don't know. Today we're going to be talking about quite a few different things. I've got me here. I'm TMV. Obviously, I'm here. I'm speaking, and also we have Elevated as normal. And we'll be talking all things, mostly about lock-in and stuff like that, and what happened, and predicting what is going to be happening in the future. So, Elevated, what will we be starting with today?
Well, I think that probably the best way to start it off is just to talk about the champions of the lock-in event. So let's go ahead and talk about Fnatic winning the title. And we like to debate things here a little bit on this podcast. So the question that I wanted to pose is, does winning the title of lock-in make them the best team in the world?
I think it would be tough to argue. I'm interested to see if you can argue that Fnatic weren't the best team at that tournament. They didn't drop a map until they played Loud and, got to 2-0 and, okay, from there it kind of crumbled a bit. And then they did ultimately win it though as well. So to me, because we had obviously the big gap from champions to lock in, right? And so a lot of teams have changed and stuff like that. I think it would be hard to argue that Fnatic aren't the best team in the world now. I do think that their game against Na'Vi was closer than people remember. There was 2 13-11s in that. Yes, the score was 3-0, but when it's a 13-11, it very easily could go the other way. So, it could have been 2-1 to Na'Vi, going into map 4. So, I don't think they're the best team by a mile, right? They definitely showed, some weaknesses, some moments of kind of doubt crept in there. But I think it would be tough to argue that they aren't the best team in the world. And if you are going to argue that, I'm interested in seeing how.
Okay, so yeah, I can see them being regarded as the best team in the world. Obviously, they won like the big international tournament, all the teams coming together. But I do think that Fnatic is kind of one of those teams, especially with the new roster, and just the way that they kind of like cook up new strategies and stuff like that, that maybe benefits a little bit from it being a single elim format. Because there was no sort of like, oh, we get tape on Fnatic and now we can go back and sort of break down our mistakes against them and then play them again. So that really only affects teams like NRG, Na'Vi, maybe DRX, like as far as those matchups against Fnatic are concerned. I do think that like a team like NRG would have done better if it was a double elim format. And Fnatic just having to beat each team one time probably helps them out. That being said, I mean, legitimately, they have a player who could arguably be considered the best in their role, period, for the entire world in every role. And, arguably even including Boaster at this point, just because he was able to bring them through, a pretty tough series multiple times as an IGL. So, it's supposed to be a debate, but I guess I would kind of agree. I think they look the best out of everybody, but I do think it is very, very close.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on.
Yeah.
Okay, the next thing you've got listed here is single elim as a format actually good? Now, I'll start on this because I argued this before the tournament when the tournament was announced, what was going on with the tournament. I know a lot of people in esports and whatnot, they don't like single elim. It's, it's more random. It's all of that kind of stuff. As someone who comes from a more traditional sports background, who watches, a lot of football or soccer, for you Americans, and American
Soccer.
football or football.
Hand egg, you mean?
Yeah, hand egg. I'm very used to single elim, and I like single elim. The stakes are higher. There's more surprises. Actually, there wasn't as many surprises as I thought there would be in this tournament. I was expecting some team to come out of nowhere and make the final four. That didn't really happen. The final four, if you would have said that at the start of the tournament, most people probably would have gone, yeah, makes sense. Arguably the best 4 teams in the world, maybe with NRG thrown in there as well. 4 out of 5 made it to the last 4. Like that doesn't happen a lot in single elimination tournaments, yeah, it happens sometimes, of course, because they're still the favorites. But normally you're due a surprise at least once. So I like single elim. I'm going to be honest. Yes, double elim. It favors the best teams. You're more likely to have the best teams, make it further because they have a second chance, even if they lose. And we've seen that all throughout last year. FPX lost on their run. Optic lost on their run to win as well. So, it can have its benefits for those teams who are actually good, but just have a bad day. But I've always liked single elim, and I don't mind if we get a mix. The other tournaments, as far as I know, are going to be double elim. Maybe a mix, some single elim, some double elim. Maybe that's the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as the double elim goes, it does kind of test like a different set of skills to some extent, where I think it's really hard to beat a team twice, especially a good team, because when you win, you don't really get a lot of data of like, oh, we need to fix these problems. Whereas the other team gets a lot of information. This was a problem, this was a problem, this was a problem. And then they get to kind of plug all those holes. And so it does sort of, favor a team that is maybe better at adapting on the fly. And I kind of tend to agree. Like, I think both formats have their merits. The thing I would really like to see from single elim is to do a group stage, which obviously would have extended this tournament to like an astronomically long length. But having, that sort of like pre-seeding phase where everybody plays like round robin in 2 groups or something like that and then goes into single elim, I think gives you maybe the best potential for that, where you'll still have those upsets here and there, but at least you get like, you don't get loud NRG in the first 2 rounds where it's like, okay, great, Yeah,
I agree. And a lot of the big kind of, like the World Cup or whatever, right? It does that, right? Where you get the group stage first and then you go into single elim knockout after that. So yeah, I mean, obviously, with the 32 teams, they probably were never going to do that because they'd be there for months. But maybe with a smaller tournament, you potentially could do that if you wanted to. And I did actually think, when we were kind of figuring out how this was going to work, and it was initially kind of rumored that Masters was going to be 10 teams. Now we know it's 12 teams with the extra Chinese teams and whatnot. But if it was going to be the 10, I do wonder if they, maybe were thinking like, oh, let's do 2 groups of 5 and, have, so many come out of those groups. Like that would have made sense as one way of doing it. I would have been interested to see if they did do that. But yeah, single elim, I like it. It sounds like, we agree again. Not much disagreement so far, but let's talk about the map pool. You've wrote here, the map pool, better or worse than Breeze Bind? This one's going to be very quick for me. Split is a goated map. Lotus is a good map, or at least it's interesting, at least right now. Breeze, not so fun. I liked Bind. Look, should they have got rid of Icebox? Yes. But I can deal with it. Is it better? I think yes.
Interesting. Okay. So I feel like there's so much bias as far as like new stuff. We haven't seen Split in a while, and obviously Lotus is a new map. People are extremely tired of watching people play Breeze with the same comp over and over. It's really hard for me to say better or worse just because I think that Bind is one of like the top 2 maps in the game, maybe top 3.
Ooh.
I really
hot
like Bind.
That is a hot take, I think.
I think Bind is a super cool map. Breeze, I think, could be a cool map if they could just figure out how to have more agent viability. I think it is an interesting map that allows for like a different side of teams to show, just because it's like a very like aim duel heavy map. And right now we don't really have one of those in the pool. And I don't know, dude, the Lotus discrepancy between attack and defense made that map seem so crazy. I agree. I do think that most teams are not playing Lotus correctly.
It'll sort itself out. This happened with Fracture and Breeze as well, where one team will figure out the defense side, everyone will copy them, and that's our meta. Like that's how it'll go on Lotus. We just need one team to consistently show that they can win, 8 rounds on defense, and then everyone's just going to copy them.
That's true. I don't know. I'll go out and do a little bit of a hot take, and I'll say that I think it's worse with the current pool. If it was up to me, I would probably take out like maybe Pearl, to be honest.
Say Icebox.
Well, obviously Icebox. I mean, but I will say that we saw some pretty cool innovations with the icebox with the harbor stuff, which
Yeah,
actually
true.
made the map pretty interesting to watch.
So
So
yeah,
should we
I
just go
mean,
on to the next topic and talk about the state of the meta, because it is
yeah,
kind of an
sure.
interesting
Why
thing.
not? Let's talk about it. The state of the meta. So we saw quite a different stuff, right? I mean, we are like, other than Killjoy, a lot of Killjoy, quite a bit of Jet. Everything else pretty much is quite open. Obviously, some maps like Ascent, are pretty like
Yeah, hasn't
veg,
changed in years.
right? Like, oh my god, like Loud literally last year played one comp on Ascent, and everyone's still playing that comp. Obviously, Chamber did mix up for a bit, but I mean, Loud never changed, and Loud only ever lost once on that map to that comp. So
Yep.
Even back at the end of champs, you might not even fully remember this, but teams like Optic and teams like Fnatic, were going away from Chamber on Ascent. They were just reverting back to what Loud was doing on Ascent, because that's just probably always been the best comp on
Yeah.
that map, like for the whole time. And everyone plays it, and it's super boring. But for most maps, especially some maps, we did see, quite a bit of variation, which is good. It's probably the most varied tournament. I'm sure there's a way you could statistically measure that, but I would say it's most likely the most varied tournament we've seen. And so I think the meta is good. Obviously, they were playing with old Killjoy as well. So
Right.
that might have inflated Killjoy a bit at lock-in. We'll see how that goes going forward. Although I still think we'll see a lot of Killjoy, but I think we're in a pretty good spot. And with Gecko coming in as well, somewhat soon, I think the initiators, we'll see what goes on there. I was worried for agents like Sky that without Breeze and Bind, Sky would be dead, like no, no Sky at all. But actually, we saw a ton of Sky. We saw a ton
Yeah.
of double controller, some double sentinel, some double duelist. Like, it wasn't just double initiator, controller, sentinel, duelist. Like, that was kind of a large portion of the meta for most of the game's history. But actually, in this tournament, we saw, quite a bit of variation.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about Sky specifically because I thought that was a
Mm.
really cool thing that we started to see where I've been pretty critical of a lot of teams of being very slow to adapt to like the changing nature of a hero-based shooter. And I think that teams did a pretty good job like
Mm.
identifying that, okay, Fade Dog's got nerfed. Um Sova is like good, but he's kind of in like a pretty balanced state, I would say, on most maps.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we need something that's kind of broken and really good at like clearing corners. And Fade is just trash at that now. Like her Prowler is awful. And so people just went to the Sky, and they didn't just go to the Sky. They went to the Sky with like this double wall comp with the Harbor
Yeah.
Viper stuff, which makes her even better just because her flashes are so good coming through a wall like that.
Mm.
So that makes me really happy to see an agent that was kind of nerfed into the ground to some extent, being Sky, suddenly have like a resurgence just because she now has like a job to do that is not being filled adequately by another agent. And as far as the Sentinel meta goes, I think the Killjoy stuff is probably my biggest problem with it currently, which is just that
Yeah.
Cypher sucks. Well, he's okay, but the problem is
Yeah.
he just doesn't have an ultimate, right? You compare Lockdown to his ultimate
Yeah.
to Cypher's
He's
ultimate, it's
just
just like
not as good,
it just
generally
doesn't
speaking.
work, right?
Yeah.
They do the same job essentially, but one character has a full set of abilities and the other one doesn't. And then with Chamber, I would not be surprised to see Chamber become one of the most picked agents on Lotus. I don't really
Mm.
know where else he fits in.
Yeah.
So he probably needs a little bit of tweaking as far as maybe getting like a second trademark back or something like that.
Mm.
But I've heard some people say that he's not as bad as people have made him out to be.
I mean,
We
that's
could,
always true, though. Anyone who gets
yeah,
nerfed, they're never as bad as people think. Anyone who gets buffed is often never as good as people think. And anyone who
yep,
gets nerfed is never as bad as people think. And I think that Loud showed, right? I can't remember
yeah,
many instances of a top team at a tournament just going like way left field with
yep,
like meta stuff. Like a favorite for a tournament, which Loud were one of the favorites, just being like, here's just something that is completely different. And apparently Furia, who kind of copied their comp, apparently that was Loud's comp. And
hmm,
Furia just kind of stole it and applied it to Haven, which was the map that Loud were permabanning.
hmm,
So basically, one big team just goes, yeah, this can work. And it's always been my held belief that there is a ton of different stuff out there that works that just no one has even bothered to try, right?
Right.
Like everyone's just like, obviously there's 7 maps and you're not going to have like, enough ideas on your own to like come up with crazy cooking stuff up on every single map. You're going to have to just steal the meta and do the normal meta stuff on some of the maps, right? And
Yeah.
you're going to have a couple maps where you can do your own stuff and it might be a bit crazy and that kind of stuff. But there's probably like comps and ideas out there that, again, I always think of this idea of, like with chess, like how, computers kind of solve chess. If you could plug in Valorant to a supercomputer and say, what should people do? I'm sure it would come out with stuff that like people had never, oh, have you tried this triple sentinel on this map? Right? That like no one would even think to try because, it's just not it's not normal, so we don't do it. And I like that Loud did that because I think it will help teams maybe think, oh yeah, no one thought Harbor was that good going into the tournament. But maybe these agents that, I always think about it, right? Like we actually saw it in the game we just watched Acend play. Breach on Icebox.
Yep.
Acend didn't know what, like they got caught out by that Breach on Icebox a couple times because they probably never played against Breach on Icebox. And it's weird. And so you don't know what they're going to do. Like I think for a lot of teams, there is value in just having, and we've seen like Navi FPX do this all the time.
Do this also.
Yeah, just here's something you've never seen before. Deal with this, and you don't know how to because you've never seen it before, and they get an easy win. I think more teams need to kind of get on that bandwagon of, unless you are like a Fnatic or really one of the top teams, who can like just play better with the normal stuff. Like if I play normal and you play normal, then Fnatic are probably gonna win, right? If you're not one of those teams though, go crazy, do something stupid, right? Just throw stuff at them they've never seen before, and you'll probably find some success.
Yeah, but don't go full Carmen Core because that was a little bit too far.
Don't go too far.
But I will say that we saw quite a few different agents picking up the op, which made me really happy. Obviously, Jet kind of dominates it, but people are like, okay, well, we don't have this like uber broken character in Chamber who just has to have the op every round. So sometimes it's really nice to just have an entire lane of a map locked down, and it doesn't make sense to put the Jet there because they can't hold the site by themselves, but a Killjoy could, or an Omen or an Astra or something like that could. So that's also really cool to see. And just a quick anecdote about like the stealing comp stuff. So a few months ago, I was doing some coaching for a free agent team in North America during like the qualifiers for their tier 2 scene. And we didn't play Ascent, and then we decided to stop playing Icebox and start playing Ascent, and we literally just took the Loud comp and I VOD reviewed all of their games, and I was like, you guys, they literally just take aim in and then insta explode onto the site every single round. And so then we did that in like 3 or 4 scrims, and we were just like plowing people in these scrims after like never winning the map before. So it's like sometimes it just works, Yeah.
Okay, let's move on, although I could talk about the meta like all day. The biggest surprises in the tournament. See, this is what I was talking about kind of before. There wasn't like, I don't think, too many mega surprises. There wasn't a team going super, super deep or anything like that. But there definitely were some surprises, I would say, both good and bad. Let me start off with a good surprise. We don't want to,
we'll do the disappointments afterwards.
we'll talk negative in just a second. Good surprise for me, Team Secret. That's going to be the first one that I mentioned, because Team Secret, to me, I thought, oh, these guys haven't I know they made a couple of roster changes and whatnot, but the core of the team hadn't been to a tournament since Champs 2021. They hadn't made a tournament, all last year. I was like, I mean, if these guys can't make a tournament last year, then, everyone's kind of leveling up. I mean, how are they going to stand a chance? I thought that they were going to be, one of the worst teams. Instead, and I know they, lost to Navi and whatever, right? But they beat Team Liquid, and I know that Team Liquid, we'll get onto them in a second probably. But they made them look like if Team Secret were a truly terrible team, they wouldn't have stomped them. It would have been, even if Team Liquid are trolling, it still would have been close. But they stomped them. They like absolutely destroyed them. And that to me was like a massive whoa. And that was probably the biggest surprise game going in from what we expected before the game started to what happened. And yeah, they lost to Navi, who were looking insane, to be fair, at the start of the tournament as well. But it gives me hope for Team Secret. I would have thought, oh, this is a team, with not much chance. They're probably going to finish like 9th in the Pacific League. Now I think could Team Secret finish in the top 3? Yeah, in Pacific. I think they have a chance, right? Are they favorites? Maybe not, but they definitely have a chance, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them competing, for that top 3 slot if they play like they did at LOCKIN. So yeah, that was a big surprise for me, probably. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, just to quickly touch on Team Secret, I also agree. Like, if you look at their core that they kept of Borkin, Vash, and Dubstep, these are like 3 of the oldest players in the VCT, I think, as well, which is also really interesting. And I think what they really showed at this tournament was that their utility usage and like the way that they like played together with their agents was like really impeccable, and that's cool to see, because it's like
it was like well thought out.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, they just, aim trained for like 200 hours in the off season and got really good. It's like, no, they actually like came up with their own ideas about how to play the game, and it was really effective. So as far as other surprises, I thought that we could talk about talent as well. I think that they've always kind of been this team that's like, are they a good team? And then and then they just like do pretty well, So it's probably time to stop doubting them, but I definitely think that they had a very exciting showing. I still don't really know where to rank them. Are they above Secret, below Secret? Like where are they in Pacific? Probably anywhere from like number 2 to like 5, to be honest. But my other surprise, probably the biggest one for me actually, was Gen G. I legitimately thought that Gen G looked like one of the top like 6 or 7 teams at this tournament.
Wow. Okay.
And that's
one game.
They played one series that they lost 2-0.
Yeah,
but
that's high praise. That's high praise for Loud.
Yeah, I mean, high praise for Loud, but also just the way that I saw them playing the game, as far as like their coordination and like their utility usage and their trading, like their fundamentals were so good that I was like, wow, this team actually looks like they've been playing together for like months or a year.
Well, aren't they making roster changes though?
No, I don't think so.
Is it not Gen G? Is it T1?
T1 added intro, I think. I'm pretty sure that Gen G is keeping whoever they have.
Oh, okay. I thought they might have been changed. I always get those two mixed up because it's just like the Korean team that isn't DRX.
Oh, maybe they are changing Secret actually.
Minus Echo.
Minus Echo as well.
Minus Echo and Secret. Sylvan and isn't it God Dead?
Oh, okay, maybe so. Well,
which is a bit weird because I think most people are with you.
I thought they looked really good. Yeah. I thought they looked really good. But whatever. I mean,
just after one game, God, that's a weird choice. must have been like behind the scenes. Things aren't going as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever. You can erase my take if you want, but they were probably the most impressive team for me that I came in with zero expectations for. And I would say maybe one other one would just be like the Chinese teams in general. Just because they're so isolated from the rest of the Valorant scene, it feels like, and yet they keep coming to these events and like challenging teams pretty well. Like I thought Edward looked really good, and even FPX, who is a bunch of teams that a bunch of players that nobody's ever heard of before, they looked pretty darn good. Obviously they didn't have success, but they looked competitive at the very least on the world scene, which is definitely a good place to be, I think, if you're sort of like a new region coming in and competing against players that have been on LAN like many times before.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, the Valorant, and I think this adds to the idea that we were talking about before, where you can play a bunch of different ways in Valorant. No one's figured it out yet. No one has there is no GOATs in this game where it's like, no, this is the best way to play. It's very clear that this is the best way to play, and if you're not playing this way, you're trolling. Like, Valorant is not like that, right? Where it just feels like, and I think that's added to every region, like, has its own style. A lot of the APAC teams or whatever, and the Chinese teams are much more kind of aggressive, and, maybe the EMEA teams, are playing a bit slower, and you've got, regions like Brazil where it's a bit more, we're just aim gods and stuff like that, but it all like balances out. Like everyone, it seems like is a bit more balanced out, where there's so many different like things that you can focus on, and the positive and negatives. The Chinese teams even though it feels like they're just completely isolated on their own, like just coming in, from the top rope out of nowhere. Like they're actually not that far away. I mean, EDD should have beat 100 Thieves.
Yeah.
They should have won that game. They
Yep.
were like, in my mind, they were clearly the better team in that game,
Yeah,
and
I would agree.
they had multiple chances to win it. I mean, the Icebox was close. They then stomped them on Lotus, and then they had 2 map points on Pearl, and then overtime to try and win it, and kind of threw it away and just kind of overheated, I think, a bit in certain
Yep.
moments, and they threw quite a few rounds. It's like if they just didn't, throw all those rounds, they easily would have won, and it could have easily even been 2-0. In 100 Thieves, we would have been thinking very well, maybe not too differently actually about them, but
Yeah.
and that probably would have been the biggest surprise of the tournament had they done that. But it really could have happened. So yeah. But now let's talking about 100 Thieves,
Oh,
who maybe not come into the.
real quick, one last shout. I think it's worth talking about Furia as well.
Oh, my team.
Just because I feel like the Brazilian scene has been like hurting
My
for
team.
a second team to be viable. It's always Loud. It was Vikings, and then everybody else was kind of bad, and then Loud, and everybody else was kind of bad. But Furia looked legitimately dangerous at this tournament. And now you've got Loud and Furia, and we won't really mention MIBR, but those two teams certainly could make some waves in the Americas region.
I don't know if you know, but I crowned Fioria as
Oh yeah.
my Morocco. Morocco being a team that reached the World Cup semifinal. I thought that
Okay.
they were going to go on the run, beat Fnatic, beat 100 Thieves, make it to the semis. Now, they came close to taking that first map off Fnatic. Had they would have, maybe they do that, maybe they win the series. They're being 100 Thieves. You're not convincing me that at that tournament with the crowd for Fioria
Oh,
that
I would
they
agree.
wouldn't have beat 100 Thieves. They definitely would have beat them. So I feel like I was so close to getting it right. But yeah, but this to me again goes back where people are way too focused on results.
Mm-hmm.
This happened when people I don't know if you saw it, but I said that C9 in their first game played a 6 out of 10 against Paper Regs, and people on Reddit are making Reddit posts about me
Yeah.
saying, "Oh, yeah, TMV's he hates NA," right? They then play DRX. They play one map really well, and they get absolutely trashed, and everyone's going, C9 are awful. I hate C. Like, people are way too focused on the results, because
Yep.
my prediction about Furia came from back at last champs when I saw, the core and coach of that team play against Fnatic and almost beat them, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they played at champs against Fnatic, it went to overtime on map 3, right? And they stomped them on Icebox. Furia stomped Fnatic on Icebox.
They
Like
didn't really
that,
make any roster changes, did they? They
I think they made one.
won or something like that.
Yeah. And so I feel like, performance is like, when we're looking at long-term results, performance matters way more than result, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're playing really well, if you're winning 2-0, stuff like that, then you're more likely to do that. Shows that you're just playing well, right? And everyone can have a bad day, but focus more on performances, not on results, if you want long-term success. That would
Yeah.
be my TMV tip of the day.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be an analyst, you literally just have to like watch the games because looking at the scoreboard afterwards is just such a bait.
Okay, but now let's skew negative. Let's start with you.
We
Go
made it
on.
this far.
Yeah, who is your biggest disappointment of Lock-In? That's something to choose from.
Oh man. Okay. Do I want to shame North America, or do I want to shame Europe? Which is my job.
Or APAC. There's choices for all three.
There definitely are. Um man, I guess I got to go with Cloud9, to be honest. Like
Here we go.
I'll let you do Liquid. I got to go with Cloud9. Um God, what is wrong with this team? Like, from the management down, like, what is going on here? You sign the best player in the world from last year, and you put together a roster that has like pedigree. You bring in a coach who has like a good history of developing teams. You put him back with his players that he used to coach in CS. You're like, all right, everything is lining up. You add Zelsis, who I think is maybe like a little bit of a strange pickup for this team, considering what they already had as far as their roles go, but he's shown to be kind of flexible and probably fits like the team vibe more than most other players. And then they come out and they look like it's literally, you have Ye, and then you have like the rest of the team. And I'm not talking about just like the player cam reaction, all the like Reddit detective stuff
Yeah.
that people were doing afterwards. It was literally just like Ye's playing a game, and then the rest of the team is playing a game, and there's really not a whole lot of crossover. And that kind of was similar to how NRG would do things to some extent, but Ye was still part of their system, and like it's like they had accounted for the fact that Ye was sometimes going to be like this lone wolf. But on Cloud9, it was just like it was just hard to describe like how bad they looked for the pedigree of players that they have. And honestly, if Zeppa didn't have like world-class performances on every map pretty much, they would have looked even worse and probably gotten 2-0'd by DRX. I mean,
yeah, that's the thing. This is why when I said C9 played a 6 out of 10, people are going, yeah, but Zeppa won this 1v4 like every round. Yeah, but that's not sustainable. He's not going to do that every game. And then when they lose 13-1 in the next game, it's like, yeah, oh, look, Zeppa didn't win these 1v4s anymore. So, yeah, they look no good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't want to speculate too much on what's going on with like the organization and everything, but
oh
like,
my God,
like,
that's even bigger disappointment.
Just what are you guys doing? Like, I don't understand. You get 3 players who are very, very flexible. You get Ye, and then you cut Ye because of quote unquote roster issues, also known as you're poor now or something. And like, just stop. Just stop. Like, this even okay. This I'm so tilted by this team. This goes even back all the way to the point of when they traded Zeta for Curry. Like,
wait, what are they doing?
Okay, so he wanted to go play for Korean Oregon in Korea. That's fine, but also like you understand what works. You had an insane Sova player. I'm sure you had opportunities to pick up an insane Sova player, and they still don't have an insane Sova player. Who's their Sova player? Is it Zeppa? Why is it Zeppa? He's a duelist. Is it Vanity? No, he's a smoker. They literally don't have like one of the most crucial roles, which is like a supportive initiator player on their team. Stop Cloud9, break up the whole roster, fix your problems, and come back next time.
But I mean, it's even worse, right? Like I literally cannot understand it. Do C9 not have accountants? Like I don't understand like how they can sign Ye, who you obviously know is going to cost a lot of money. Like you must know when these sponsorships are running out. Like you must be able to look at it and be like, guys, I'm not sure these sponsors are going to run out, and then I'm not sure if we're going to have enough money for this. Like, what do you mean? Like, I get it. Like, I get it. It's a recession. Like, you know, money's tight. All of that. Money's tight for all these other teams. You know, NRG aren't dropping artists. You know, all of a sudden because of money troubles or whatever. Like, what is going on? What is going on? I don't understand it whatsoever. It's so annoying to me. And Ye, of all people, who's like, you know, the face of 2022
He's
Valorant.
Screwed. Like he probably won't play until probably LCQ when a team's like, we need Ye or something.
Yeah,
like
a super nice guy. He's been screwed by this. I know he probably got like some severance pay or whatever, but he signed that contract at like the height of his, you know, that's the best contract he was gonna get. And he just got screwed out of it because of the org that he chose to sign with. I mean, you could say like, oh, he should have known that C9 were a dumpster fire or whatever. Maybe he should. But by all accounts, Ye is this super nice guy who, you know, signed probably like his big break contract. And yeah, he's probably still going to be doing fine or whatever. But I feel bad for him because he's kind of been robbed. He's kind of been robbed and shoved to the side. And now, you know, when he's negotiating with his next team, it's going to be like, well, no one can really afford you to give you the contract that C9 gave you before, so you're going to be earning less, right? He's getting screwed by this as well, and he's not playing on a team now, and it's just so annoying to me that they did that. But let me talk about another disappointment before we just keep going on C9. I've got a couple to choose from here. I did pick Paper Rex to win this tournament, okay? And so I am just going to quickly, you know, talk about them. I don't know what they were doing, right? I don't know what they were doing, and to be honest, this is something that has annoyed me. There's little whispers. I'm not sure if you heard these whispers. There's little whispers going around before the tournament started that maybe some teams won't be trying, right? It's a single elim tournament. You know, it's not a slot for masters. It doesn't count for champs, you know, or anything like that, right? You don't get too much for winning it, other than the fact that you've won it.
Hmm.
right? You don't get much for it. So yeah, maybe teams just won't try that much. What is going? And Paper Rex, it looked like they got that memo, right? It looked like they were the team that was like, well, everyone. There was little. Didn't you hear the whispers?
They
Oh,
were
there's
kind of
whispers
sending it
going
all the
on.
time.
There was whispers that people weren't trying, so we thought maybe we wouldn't try as much for this one. This makes me so angry that like how could you be and look, I'm not saying that they really didn't try, uh but just the fact that there was anyone who's putting out those little whispers that people wouldn't try, that annoyed me in and of itself. The fact that you could be a professional player and you're playing like potentially the only international tournament that some of these players will ever play, right? Some teams it's not going to go great for them. Only 3 of you are going to make it to Tokyo. Only 4 of teams are going to make it to champs, and then some of you will be gone, right? So the fact that this is like your one guaranteed chance to play at an international LAN, and some of these teams like maybe didn't go in fully trying their hardest, that annoyed me in and of itself. But Paper X, I just felt like and now there's rumors that they're going to make roster changes and whatnot as well. Like, yeah, this is what happens when you play like they did. Because you're arguing about C9 being the biggest disappointment. C9 dumpstered Paper Rex. Like, you're talking about that being your disappointment. This team got destroyed by a team that you think is one of the biggest disappointments of the tournament. And it's just like, it's just
That is
like,
fair.
like Talon were what Paper X, like Talon played similar to Paper X, right? It was quite aggressive. It was very fast, fluid, like crazy stuff, right? And it was like, well, Talon are doing it. And like for all of, Xertia and old Paper X, right? Like you've kind of always been just like a bit better than, than Xertia, right? You've always just been like, yeah, but we're you, but just like a bit better. But in this tournament, it was like the complete opposite, right? One team looked completely lost, whereas Talon, showed that the style can still do pretty well and you can still, win games with it. And so that just brought up even more questions. It's not like the meta, has changed in such a way that you can't play this. If anything, the meta now for this, double duelist stuff and going crazy, we saw on multiple maps, multiple teams making that work. So it felt like,
Yeah.
if any time, this was your time. This was your time to potentially, go in for some of the stuff that you were doing. And yeah,
And also, if you remember, Paper X's superpower in previous events was the fact that they would come in with some weird stuff that people had never seen
yeah,
before. And
they
a
did
single
one
Elam
stage
tournament is perfect for this, right?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, that was my reasoning for picking them to win it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Paper Rex through the off season will have been cooking some stuff up. It's a new meta. No one's going to know what they're doing, right? They're just going to be throwing stuff at you that you could never have foreseen, and you're going to just get completely caught off guard by it. That was genuinely the reason I thought they could win this, right? It's single a limb, and they're just going to be throwing shit at people that, no one has ever seen before. And instead, they go out like that. But let's quickly talk about Liquid as well, because we can't not talk about Liquid when we're talking about biggest disappointments. Because this one for me is almost confusing. Like I almost like, the Paper Rex one, okay, maybe they just, I don't know, overcooked it. I don't know. The C9 one, the org is a mess, right? The Team Liquid one, I can't really fully explain like what's going on, because Redgar has proven himself as a good IGL. Maybe it's the fact that he's IGLing in English. Maybe that's the thing. But even so, it looked like these players were lost. Like, other than Nats, everyone else was just lost. But literally everyone on their team has proven themselves to be a very, very good player of this game. So I really don't understand it. And even, Emil, the coach, he took Liquid through the LCQ and they won LCQ with him. So, he can't be like, this brain dead coach. He clearly has some idea of what he's doing. So I don't understand. I literally don't understand. I mean, maybe they just had like literally the worst performance they could have. Maybe that was just it. And it was just like, hey, we had our worst day, and that was kind of just what we saw. I don't know if that was the case or not, but I don't. What do you think caused the Liquid fumble?
So I was like, because my first impression of watching them was that they were awful. And then yesterday when I was coming into this and I was ready to just like dunk on them completely.
Yep.
And so I went back and watched their VOD against Team Secret again.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, I was right. They are bad. Like, what is going on? And to me, it really looked like every single one of their rounds was like half developed. Like they
Yeah.
had the default down pretty well. And then once they got into the mid round, there was absolutely no plan. Like there were so many times where they would get onto site and then the spike would just be like meandering around. There's like they hadn't discussed who was supposed to plant or where they were supposed to plant, or like they would do some sort of set play to get space early on defense or attack, and then once they would get that space, they would be like, "What now? Like, what are we supposed to do now?" It was so weird to watch because part of
Yeah.
their game was really good, and then the rest of it was just completely uncoordinated nonsense.
Yeah.
And so I think that they actually do have good potential, like if they can, flesh
If
out
they
these
got the
game
players.
plans. But I also do think that there is an inherent problem with their roster because
Mm.
they brought in Safe, who is
Yep.
probably a
Yeah.
top 5 Jet player from last year,
Yep.
and now he's playing Sentinel. And I understand
Yep.
that Yampy is a good opper. Yampy's a good opper, and he's a very aggressive player, so it kind of makes sense to have him on Jet. But
I think Safe's the better Jet.
I don't think that Safe should be taken off the role. I think
I think
Safe
Safe is the
Safe should
better
be their
Jet.
opper. He should be their Jet because he's more consistent. He's less prone to have like these overheating moments. Yampy has shown that he's pretty adaptable and he can kind of have pop off rounds on Killjoy and other stuff as well. And they seemingly have the pieces to make this work. Soulcast, in my opinion, was maybe like the biggest question mark on this roster for me coming into this year because I thought that he was probably the least reliable player on the previous Liquid team. Um, but he's also been like known to be pretty flexible. I
Yeah.
just don't know. I don't really know with like the safe move and then the Yampy Soulcast combo. I trust in Redgar and Nats. I will put that as like Redgar and Nats plus, in my opinion, safe is like a very good core. I'm a little
Yeah.
bit confused about what Yampy and Safe's relationship is as far as their roles. And then I also just have some questions about like the stableness of this roster in general.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't really know. I'm sure that they're gonna like come together and end up being like a pretty good team this year, but I don't think they're gonna be anywhere remotely close to challenging Fnatic or Navi because I just don't think that they have like the correct role situation, and I think that there's sort of like
They got a
inherent
really good
problems.
team for the chamber meta.
Yeah,
Like they've got a really good chamber meta team, and now the chamber isn't meta. It's a bit like, oh, what do we do now? What do we
yeah,
do now? But they clearly clearly they fixed the old like Liquid, the old Liquid, right? Like Screams Liquid back in the day, right? The roles were a mess. No one
yeah,
had roles on that team.
yeah.
It
Correct.
was just flip a coin, pick out of a hat. What role are you playing? Right? No one had roles. So I like that at least we've kind of committed to, Yampy is our duelist. Safe's gonna play KO or whatever he's gonna play on different maps, right? Like that's fine, no problem with that. Um, but yeah, it just feels like Yampy was playing Raze. I think
Hmm.
had Yampy ever played Raze before? I can't remember if he
He
had.
probably played it a few times back when Sliggy was having them try like every agent in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, he's probably played it once. He's probably played every agent literally once.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, it just felt to me the big problem was not necessarily the icebox because the icebox I was more like, okay, this is Team Secret's map pick. Team Secret clearly looked very prepared. Looked
Hmm.
like they had a good idea of what they wanted to do and they did it pretty well. So okay, fair enough. Your opponent's map pick, that's fine. They then picked Fracture, and what they won like 2 attacking rounds or whatnot.
Hmm.
Like we've seen and we saw this. I mean, we saw this a couple days ago with G2 when they lost to Turtle Troop. There are a
Yep.
ton of teams out there in today's Valorant that have no idea how to defend on Fracture. We saw it
Yep.
from Leviathan. We saw it from G2. We saw it from 100 Thieves. There's just quite a few teams that just have, without Chamber, we are lost.
Hmm.
Lost on how to defend on Fracture. Got no idea. And so you would think, your map pick, you're on attack side, against a team that you have better players than. Sorry, Team Secret, but overall, from what we've seen so far, you've got better players and we win like 2 rounds and we just look like yeah, I mean, I remember I did a VOD review of that game for a video, and there's a round. I think it even might be the bonus round, and like at the start, I think it's the bonus round where Yampy double blast back into A main with like one stun from Redgar,
Oh my god, he
and
gets stunned, and then there's 3 people shooting him as soon as
yeah,
he
he
gets around
gets.
the
I mean,
corner.
it's an insane stun by Team Secret. Like the guy, like flicks round with a breach stun and manages to catch him. But even so, I was just thinking, like, even if he doesn't get stunned, he's still just running into two people. Like he's completely on his own, just
Yep.
like into two people. And like, it's not like everyone else is outside A main. It's just Redgar playing breach outside A main. Everyone
Yep.
else is on the other side of the map.
Yep.
So we're double blast backing in, and like you are alone.
It
Like
was
he's just
bizarre.
like completely on his own, and everyone else is on the other, like slowly working out the rest of the map. But you're double blast packing in. It's like what's going on? Like why is one person playing at 1,000,000 miles an hour and everyone else is playing at like 2? Like it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
There's another round that I remember from the fracture where this is like sort of like the encapsulation of this entire Liquid performance, in my opinion, where it's Redgar and Yampy going for the dish orb, and they go for the dish orb. They kind of move up quickly, and then there's a counter breach stun as they get around the corner of the dish, and Yampy throws out a blast pack to save himself, and blast packs Redgar into the other team and escapes. And I was like, so there was a plan initially, but then there was no like part B or C or anything. And as
Yeah.
soon as
Well, what if
the
they
plan
do
breaks
X?
down, every single one of these like high skill individual players immediately goes into like individual, I need to carry my team in ranked mode. And like that's exactly
Yeah.
what I saw.
Yeah. Well, okay. Enough bashing. Let's go to the next question, which is which of the 3 regions looks the strongest after lock-in? Now, this I think is a good question, actually, because I think I'm interested to see what you. In fact, yeah, you go first. What do you think? Which one's the strongest of the 3 regions?
I think it's the Americas.
Go on,
And
explain why.
this is not just my bias being from the Americas region. You know me. I like prefer watching Pacific teams a lot of the time. America's region in the past has kind of been my least favorite to watch, but I think you've got some very, very strong Latin America and Brazilian teams that have been added to like this 100 Thieves, NRG, Sentinels, and EG. I think all 4 of those teams, I think Energy is clearly a step above, along with Loud. But then I think Sentinels was fine. I could see them getting better. I thought 100 Thieves was fine, and I could see them getting better. I think Evil Geniuses was fine, and I can see them getting better as well. Furia, we've already talked about as being good. Leviathan looked insane on a couple of maps and mediocre on others, but that also puts them in kind of like the fine category with the potential to get better. I think the only team that looked particularly bad from the Americas was MIBR, and then Cloud9, obviously.
Yeah.
Crew, they were not
Crew.
great,
Great.
but again,
And they're getting
like,
Kesnet apparently, which
they're getting Kesnet back. They're still going to be a mediocre team this year, but you still have like a decent chunk of the teams as being like pretty good, and at least 2 of them with potential to win tournaments. I think no matter when, like who they're playing against, and then I could also see the likes of 100 Thieves, probably Sentinels, and also maybe Furia also challenging for like a top 4 spot at a tournament as well.
Okay, so I don't necessarily agree with some of the things you said, particularly around teams like Fury and Leviathan. I think that the rest of the NA teams, not named NRG, are not that good.
Okay.
Or at least they didn't play that good. Not saying that they won't be good, but I don't think that they played that well. C9 obviously now are a mess. You know, don't even know who's on that team. EG, I thought they had one good game and then kind of fell apart, and I really didn't like some of the things that they did on Haven. And it was a bit like, you know, I'm a bit unsure, and I feel like, yeah, they brought out this Yoru comp on Pearl, and it looks super cool, but then I always worry, like, oh, we're playing Yoru double duelist. You know, if you would keep playing that and people realize what we're doing, like I always feel like Yoru is good for a game, like great for the lock-in tournament, but for a
Mm.
league system, I'm not too sure how sustainable that will be. 100 Thieves, I could have put them in the biggest disappointments category because again, if we just look at the performances, like okay, they won 2
Yeah,
games.
but you gotta think about the potential. Like, obviously, Cryo sells
but
Raze is probably the biggest disappointment of the entire tournament. But they're not gonna just continue to put him on Raze. They're gonna put Awesome back on
maybe
Raze,
not. But
and they will get
like
better.
to me, the problem is, and I was saying this when they were playing as well, is Stella did that interview with Wyatt where he was like, "Oh yeah, when we were working with Sean, it was more kind of more structured rounds, and it was more like set play rounds, and just like straight calls and whatnot." And Stella was like, "Oh no, but I actually prefer when we're a bit more loose and like that. And now with Mike's, we're a bit more loose." The problem that I saw is their best rounds at lock-in were all just their set play rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Still, like those were the best rounds. That or at least most of them. Yeah, obviously they would have had a couple that were nice still when they were kind of calling it on the fly. But they just didn't look that great. Like that's all I can say. And yeah, you can always say, "Oh yeah, but they can be better and whatnot." But like to me, like if Liquid played up to the potential of their players, like they would be, like one of the favorites to win tournaments, right? If you just look at the player names and go, "How good is this player?" You'd be like, "Wow, Team Liquid, what a team they've got," and that's what everyone thought coming in, right?
Yeah, I
So
disagree. I look
you
at
don't
3
think?
players. I look at 3 players, and I think that I've already talked
Oh,
about these 3
I think
players.
you're being harsh. I think you're being harsh.
I think you could put Redguard, Nats safe up against like Asuna, Bang, and probably Cryo or Derek, and I think it's fairly even.
Yeah, maybe. And no, yeah, I'm not saying that 100 Thieves don't have like the talent versus Liquid, but I just think like everyone seems to have this mentality of but 100 Thieves will come good. Whereas when we're talking about Liquid, it's like, and I know that Liquid's performance was worse, don't get me wrong, but I thought a lot of I don't know. I just thought it was, to me there was just like a clear gap, which I wasn't really expecting. But I thought between the top 5 teams of the tournament, which to me were Fnatic, Loud, Navi, NRG, and DRX, like I thought that those 5, and then there was a clear gap to everyone else. Like
I was pretty surprised at how much I thought everybody fell off below that.
Yeah, I think there's like Leviathan are almost in their own tier.
Mm-hmm.
Like Leviathan are like the next team,
Leviathan,
but they're like
Talon,
almost.
maybe.
Oh, I wouldn't even put. I feel like Talon. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. Live by the
Fair.
sword, die by the sword. I feel like a bit with Talon. But I feel like Leviathan, they're kind of in their own tier. Who can maybe like give those top 5 teams a game, but probably won't win. And then everyone else, and then we kind of did see this in the rest of the tournament. Everyone else just kind of gets too old, right? Everyone else just kind of loses to those teams, which I kind of thought was a pretty big surprise because I would have thought, those teams obviously have good players and whatnot. But anyway, to answer the question of the 3 regions, I think maybe Americas, because I do have some faith in Fioria, and because I mean Leviathan are such an annoying team though. It's such an annoying team. It's like their Ascent is really good. Yeah, they lost to Navi. Their Ascent is still really good.
Yep.
Their Haven is pretty good.
Yep.
Their Pearl is okay.
Yep.
And then it's just like,
do they have other maps?
Oh my god! Oh my god! Yeah, did we practice Fracture? Did we practice that map? We're permabanning Split.
Yep.
Oh my god, that Fracture was so bad. And I know that Navi are a great Fracture team. They're a really good team on Fracture. Don't get me wrong. They're probably one of the best in the world at Fracture. But oh my god, it was rough. Oh my god, it was so bad. Like they're just so annoying. And I think in the EMEA region, there was a couple of surprises, like good and bad. Obviously, Liquid were a big bad, but we're actually a team that I thought like, oh, they're better than I thought.
But yeah,
like
100%.
Yeah, like I was like, oh, like Kiwi is actually an insane player, and this just like makes me kind of hurt a bit for like the Turkish scene, because if NRG didn't steal artists away from EMEA and he's still with Navi, maybe CNED goes to a Turkish team. And you put CNED on that team as well, and all of a sudden maybe you're really like cooking. You got like actual players that can like you got enough actual like super firepower that can really like actually challenge a lot of these teams. So I kind of like feel like that's almost a bit of a shame, really, for a team like Foot, because that would have been really cool to see, I think. But I think for EMEA, there's like all the regions are kind of the same to me. With Pacific maybe only has one super team instead of two, but like for every Furia, like there's a team Vitality in EMEA who I kind of would think, yeah, they're about the same, right? They've got, some really good players. They're kind of like a team that if they can keep improving, like, maybe they could make it to Tokyo if they do well.
God,
I feel
Twisting
like
is so good. Twisting is incredible.
Like I feel like there's kind of like similarities between each of the regions. To be honest, where it just feels like we've got 5 super teams and then there's the rest. But I actually feel like, especially with C9, doing whatever they do, picking up, whoever they do, right? Just playing with 3 players or whatever. Between Crew and MIBR as well, I feel like the bottom of Americas is worse than the bottom of EMEA.
I would agree with
personally.
That. I would agree
and so
with that.
So yeah, I feel like because of that, I think you could make an argument for EMEA being slightly better than Americas, because both have 2 kind of super teams. Both kind of have maybe a couple teams that you're like, oh, yeah, these are decent. These could, contend. But then I feel like the very like bottom, whoever comes like 10th in EMEA versus 10th in Americas, I feel like the EMEA team would probably win like 10th, 9th. That would be my argument for EMEA.
Hear me out. There's only one way to settle this. We have Team Heretics and MIBR play a best of 12.
Oh, Team Heretics are winning.
Dude.
Oh, I don't think I don't.
You mean Team Kellogg's?
Oh yeah, but he's gonna win like 3 maps on his own. So I'm already 3-0 up. Heat will win you 1, so it's 3-1, and then we go even the rest of the way. Heretics win. No, yeah, Heretics. Yeah, Heretics are not that bad. I mean, it wasn't great, but I don't think they're that bad.
MIBR did not look like they were playing Valorant, to be fair. They legitimately looked like they had just grabbed like 5 random people from like a ranked server and just thrown them into this tournament.
And also I think Koi, someone just brought it up in my Twitch chat. Koi, I think, got a bad draw with NRG.
Correct.
I actually think Koi with some more time have the talent to be like, like the America's version of Leviathan, where it's like they're not in like the top tier, but they've got like the player quality to be like a really like a contender.
Yeah, I think.
But they only played 1 game.
They probably would have made like maybe top 8 if they hadn't played Energy in the first round.
Yeah.
I think Wolfen definitely needs some like polishing, because I was keeping track of the stats. He took over half of the first duels for the team. And he lost more than half of them.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to win the game when you're down a player in like half of your rounds. But that being said, I agree. I think Koi definitely have potential. And I actually, before we move on, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on a couple of other teams, just because I'm having a really hard time placing the likes of like Giants. I think Vitality is probably a little bit ahead. Like Giants, BBL, Carmen Corp. Like, where are these teams in like the overall global?
Giants are like a solid team that, like, I would call Giants. They are your classic B tier team, like upper B tier team. They're like a classic. Maybe they could even qualify for Tokyo if things like break right for them. They could qualify, right? They're gonna have some maps where it's good, some maps where it's not so good, right? I mean, they are kind of the old G2. That is like where I would put them. That's where I would
the good half of the old G2.
No, but like as everyone else is kind of leveling up as well, I think that like seeing them as kind of like the successor to G2, where it's like they're probably like the 4th or 5th best EMEA team. Like that is where they kind of are. Maybe, and then like as we saw with Reykjavik, if things break right, they can go to an international tournament, right? But generally speaking, they're gonna be kind of okay. For BBL, they're like Leviathan. They've got the Leviathan problem, where it's we're good on Ascent, and maybe we're okay on Pearl. And other than that, we don't practice those maps.
Sure.
We don't know what those maps are. We play Ascent. We just practice. We're just practicing Ascent, right? They're a team that like if you play them on Ascent, They could be anyone on Ascent on that day, literally anyone. But on all the other maps, I don't know about that. Right? That's
Right.
just the way that they are. So they're like, if they develop their map pool, they'd be like a team that you would be like a bit scared of. I think if they had like 3 maps as good as their Ascent, they'd be like a team that you'd be like, oh, they could do some damage. But because they only have Ascent and then like maybe 1 or 2 okay maps, it's just like, when someone picks their their 6th best map against them, they just get destroyed. So that's where they are. And Carmine, God knows what to think about
Bottom
Carmine.
3.
I mean, look, I saw Plat Chat was saying like, they had hope for Carmine. I mean, when I watched Carmine, it was just a bit kind of like, it's just a bit too crazy. I mean, they've got talent. It's like, it's no surprise that they kind of, they're like old Team Liquid, but maybe just a bit worse.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like, we got firepower. Like we got like Scream or Navarra will, or even the other players as well, will just win you rounds out of nowhere sometimes. Right? Just that was a cool round. Oh, Scream got 4K. Good round. Nice round. That will happen. And that'll win maps. Scream or Navarra or some of the other players will just sometimes pop off and win a map. But over the long term, they still got some things to fix. Now, I don't mind them going in for this no duelist stuff.
Yeah.
I don't mind that. Like, if you're going to play no of one of the classes, duelist would be the choice. Most definitely, in my opinion. So I don't mind if they're going to do that. But I feel like that almost doesn't fit their play style.
Like who they
right?
are.
Like, if
Yeah.
you're playing, like, no duelist, like, when you think of, like, we're playing no duelist on every map. And they did play a duelist on Split, actually. But, if we're playing no duelist on, like, every map, you're thinking of like, we're going to slowly take map control. We're going to, have all this map control, and then we're going to run these nice little fakes and little split hits at times and, do all of this stuff. But then, we're talking about a team where, your top fragger is also your IGL. And so you'd think it'd be a bit more like just fast paced and kind of go. I almost wonder if they're the team that should be playing double duelist and just, let someone else go ahead of Scream, but let Scream play duelist. Have the other person, be the space creator, have be Scream the guy who's right next to them getting the kills, and that might help them. I almost feel like that might work. So I don't mind them going for this direction, but I just don't know if it actually fits the team. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I Carmine won't be I just think they'll finish 7th in the EMEA.
That's fair.
Personally. I think that they'll finish 7th.
All right, let's do our last topic, which is going to be Masters Tokyo predictions.
Okay.
So we've got 3 slots for the Americas, 3 slots for Pacific, and 4 slots for EMEA. Starting with Americas, what 3 teams do you think are going to make it to Masters Tokyo?
Okay. I'm going to say NRG and Loud, because if one of those teams doesn't make it, something I feel like has gone very wrong, especially if it's double a limb to qualify. So I feel like those 2, either something would be very wrong. I don't know if they didn't make it. So I'm going to go those. And then the third one is a bit of a toss-up between quite a few different teams, to be honest. I'm going to go Leviathan as my third choice, but I could hear an argument for quite a few different teams. But I'm going to go Leviathan. What about you?
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think Energy and Loud, again, it's like something has to go wrong for those teams not to qualify, because there was a very clear tier gap between them and everybody else in the region. And yeah, this third one, it's like between it, are Sentinels able to figure out what's going on with like their 2 different cores and put them together correctly? And will Zekin realize his potential that everybody knows he has? Will 100 Thieves figure out that Cryostellars shouldn't be playing Raze and that they have the potential to be a very good team if they can just like, do what's good for them?
Yeah.
Or will Furia just simply like aimbot everybody in the server? And True. So honestly, I'm gonna go with Furia. I'm kind of feeling the Brazilian
I like
FPS scene right now. So I'm gonna go Furia, Loud, and Energy as my 3 teams from the Americas.
Okay, let's go Pacific next.
Yep.
You go first.
Okay. Well, this news about Gen G changing players is a little bit unfortunate. Obviously, we're not including the Chinese teams, right? Because I think it's
No,
probably just going to be like Edward and FPX get invited again. I don't really know how that's going to work, but
yeah, we'll see.
okay. So DRX obviously I think is pretty much a shoe-in. Like even if they did have one of those moments where they like lose to a new turn, quote unquote, like there's 3
They'll
slots.
still get in. Yeah.
They're getting in.
Yeah.
So DRX for sure. I think I would probably go with Team Secret and Paper X.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting choices. Okay. I'm gonna see. I thought you weren't gonna say Paper X, and I was gonna be like, oh, I'll say Paper X.
I think they're gonna figure it out. I think they have like
Interesting.
enough international experience. Like
Mm.
they're gonna kind of like reinvent themselves, maybe buckle down. They have a little bit of a wake up call where they just got slapped around. They don't want to miss out on a land that's kind of in their backyard to some extent.
Mm.
I think they'll make
Interesting.
it, which is
Okay.
sad because I really want Zeta to be there, but I don't think they're
Yeah,
going to
that's
be.
true. That's true. Yeah, I don't think so. Ever make it either. I'll go DRX as the obvious one. I want to say Talon. I really, really do want to say Talon, but I'm not too sure. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna almost piggyback off you and say that yeah, they're making roster moves. I'm gonna say Gen G go,
Okay.
and they make it, and their roster moves, I don't know, make them a bit better, and they're even better than they were before, and they go. And then my third, oh man, I mean, Paper Rex have supported me quite a bit. They put me on their socials. They put me in their videos. So it's kind of tough to
Okay.
say.
The Tory broadcaster, sponsored by.
I'm gonna say fine. Okay, I'll say Talon for dressing up as Power Rangers and being fun. I'll say Talon, and then
Okay.
finally we'll come to EMEA, and I'll go first this time. So Fnatic Navi again. Fnatic and Navi don't make it. What's gone wrong?
Yep.
I think. Oh man, 4 slots. Oh,
It
I'll
should
say
be easy.
Vitality. I'll say Vitality because I
Okay.
think that they probably showed the most of everyone else. The fourth one, though, oh my god. Oh, I mean, will Liquid make a comeback? Will they actually achieve? Or will they just be bad?
It's so tough.
I think I'm going to go Koi. I'm going to go Koi. Those are my
Okay.
4. I'm going to go Fnatic, Navi, Vitality, Koi.
Interesting. Okay. Who's the Koi coach, by the way? Is it Barbar?
It's Barbo, yeah, the old guild coach.
Okay. I was gonna say I feel like the coach role plays like a huge part in how these teams develop over the first season. So I have quite a bit of faith in him to mold this Koi team. So yeah, I think for me, Fnatic Navi obviously shoe-ins. I'm a little bit worried about Vitality and like nerves. I thought they looked kind of nervous
Yeah,
at lock-in.
true.
And so
They
when
aren't
it's
that
like,
experienced of a team, so that does
yeah,
make sense.
you've got Bone Cold, and that's basically it, right?
Yeah.
Who's been international experience. So as much as I would like to see them, because I like Bone Cold and I like Twistin, I like their players, and they seem to have a lot of promise. I kind of feel like they're gonna miss this time, and I think I'm gonna go with Koi as well. And then the last slot, I'm so torn between picking like a foot or yeah, God, is it Team Liquid? Are they gonna make it? Okay,
Giants,
no,
maybe?
scrap this.
You can always go Giants.
We're going Fnatic, we're going Navi, we're going Team Liquid. Is it Giants or Koi? Giants or Koi? I'm gonna go Giants. I'm going Giants. I'm going Nookie.
You know what? The more I think about it, Giants are going to annoy everyone, get that 4th slot, and
Yep.
literally just crash and burn out of Master Tokyo, and just is like they shouldn't belong there.
Oh
That's
no,
exactly
really?
what's gonna happen. It's definitely gonna happen. They're gonna be the 4th team, sneak in, and then just just lose straight away and not even put up a fight. That's
That's
such
tough.
it's such an old G2 move of you just sneak in there, and then it's like I guess G2 did okay in that tournament to be fair, but if you just you're not gonna win it, get out, just get out. Just get like G2 were never gonna win those tournaments. Let's just leave. What are you doing here? That's Giants.
Okay, fair enough. Well, they're making it to Masters Tokyo according to my predictions. So take
Okay.
that.
Okay, there you go. And that was Cosmic Divide, episode 4 or 5, maybe even 3. No, it's definitely more than 3.
There's definitely at least 4, potentially
Oh,
5.
you think? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. But that was the episode. Hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. I'm talking about Valorant. It's quite fun.
It is
I
very
find it quite
fun.
fun. But
Also,
yeah,
you're
thank you.
pretty
Oh.
entertaining when you talk about it. And playing teams.
Yes, thank you all for watching. The next time that we do this, I imagine will probably be, sometime, maybe the league's already started, maybe a halfway point or something like that. We could take a look at what's going on. And yeah, we'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Elevated, for joining me. And goodbye.
Bye, everybody.